Okay, we're ready to start. Okay, good afternoon, everybody. For those here on the East Coast, for some, good morning. For others, good evening. Okay, at this point, I think it would be good. Well, first, let me just recapitulate what we've done so far. In the course of the morning, we have examined, investigated the body, and reflected upon the body in terms of the earth element, discerning the earth element through the property of what we call solidity, hardness, substantiality, or simply the earthiness of the body that manifests the earth element. And we could see that as we scan the body, all of the manifestations of hardness, solidity in every part of the body. Then from the earth element, we went to the air element. The air element has the properties of motion, pressure, and is particularly discerned in the process of expansion and contraction. Those are two modes of exerting pressure. Expansion is outward pressure. Compression or contraction is inward pressure. And so we start off experiencing expansion and contraction by observing the abdomen, expanding and contracting. Then we move to the chest, expanding and contracting. And then we investigate every place in the body where we can discern expansion and contraction until we can perceive the whole body itself in almost all its components constantly undergoing an expansion and contraction. In a way, you could say that the expansion and contraction of the body almost is a mirror of the natural process of the change of seasons, where we go from summer via autumn to winter, then from winter via spring to summer. Okay, so that was the air element or the wind element. Then we took the fire element, which manifests as bodily heat, bodily temperature. And so we searched for some regions of the body where we could detect bodily heat most clearly and distinctly. Then we moved to other regions looking for the bodily heat there until we were able to explore the entire body in terms of the inherent heat, the natural temperature of the body. So before we go on to the last element, the water element, I'll ask whether there are any practical questions relating to this exercise. Okay, Shaolin. Now you have to unmute. Okay.
Thank you, Bante. I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I have a question about earth, actually all the elements, because yesterday when you started leading the sweep, I feel the lungs were kind of vacuous. They didn't feel very substantial at first. And then, but by the time we got to the feet, I feel like the whole body was heavier than usual.
Yeah.
And so the second time when you led that, the lungs actually felt substantial. But then by the time we got to feet again, the whole body felt like a rock.
Exactly. That's good. That's the way it should be. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because then when this morning we did the air, like from earth to air, it's like I was like lightened all of a sudden, and then when you said shift back to earth, and I was like, oh, a rock again.
Yeah, sometimes when you do this the total awareness of the body in terms of the earth element, it's like a block of marble.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's
so that's
good.
normal.
That's a good sign. Yeah, that's
Okay.
a good sign.
Yeah, because I feel the same thing with walking meditation when we did like earth element.
Yeah,
It's it gets hard to walk.
exactly. That's what I wanted people to experience.
And
That
I
when you're
realized I
trying
was
to
taking
walk,
shorter steps and more deliberate, shorter and heavier steps.
yeah, that means that you're doing it well. That
Okay.
just to walk a short distance, it's like you're carrying a heavy burden on your shoulders.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, that's good.
Thank you.
Okay, Derek.
Hello, Bante.
Okay.
Thank you. So I have two brief questions.
Yeah.
One with regards to the practice of mindfulness of breathing. Is it okay or just as good to not have an object? Just know that the body is breathing in and breathing out? Or is it still better to have an object like the rise and fall of the stomach? And if it's really better to have an object, is it important to be aware of the sensation related to the in and out breath around the stomach, or just knowing that there is the rise and fall of the stomach?
No, in my opinion, this is my opinion, that when one is in the elementary stage of doing, or the basic stage, the foundational stage for Anapanasati, you should have a specific focal point of either around the nostrils, the chest expanding and contracting, the abdomen rising and falling. Though I guess you could also just do awareness of the body breathing in and out, the body as a whole breathing in and out. But you should be focusing on something, not just knowing that you're breathing, but you should be actually experiencing the tactile sense of the body in the process of breathing.
I see. Okay. And then, Bante, with regards to the scanning of each part of the body, if the mind is not quiet and not sharp, and or not able to be aware of sensations, or sometimes wandering quite a bit, you know, part of the mind sometimes is pulled by pain or pressure in other areas, and sometimes it gets impatient. So one quick question is, how long do you stay in one area to try to discern the sensation when your mind is not so clear? And then perhaps more importantly, if the mind is trying to find some sensation, almost worry about there's like a craving for any kind of sensation, and so worry about that might, you know, cultivate that sense of craving. So perhaps the question is like, what would help in terms of not developing craving, or at least not get so tight, for the mind to get so tight?
Okay. So this is pretty much what I said during the scans. You go to a particular region looking for the manifestation, say the earth element, the sense of hardness, solidity, earthiness. You just stay there for, I don't want to give like a number of seconds, but you have to do it intuitively. Just, can I detect the hardness there? Do I detect the solidity? Then if you don't pick up anything after a reasonable time, let's say I'm just approximating 10 or 15 seconds, then don't be disappointed, don't be upset, don't become anxious, but just move on to the next part and then look for the sensation there. And so the way we're doing this, or the way it works, particularly for beginners to this meditation, the first few times you scan, you're just going to pick up the sense of hardness or solidity here and there, not everywhere, but it doesn't matter. Wherever you pick it up, that's fine. Even if the first time you don't pick it up at all, you just continue through to the end of the scan, and then come back for another scan. And as you go on doing this, the mind becomes more and more sort of attuned to the processes in the body. And then you start to pick up the sensation until, as you get more experience, then you could pick up the particular manifestation, the particular mark of the element throughout the body. It's a sort of gradual process of cultivation. Okay, we'll move on to the
Thank you,
next
Bhante.
question. Does that answer the question?
So, Bhante, when doing the scan of the body, I felt a lot of patches of pain here and there in the body. And my question is how to see elements in the feeling of pain?
How
to see elements, different elements in the feeling of pain?
Yeah, the feeling is different from an element. And if the pain is caused by holding the legs in the crosswise position too long, you can readjust the posture to overcome the pain, because we don't want to be sort of distracted by the pain of the body. So if you can ignore the pain and just function and just focus on the sensation representing the element, do so. Let the pain just continue in its own way and just investigate, seek out the characteristic of the element. But if the pain gets too strong so that you can't really search for the element, then readjust the posture to ameliorate the pain.
Okay, thank you, Bhante.
Okay, that was okay. Next is Helena.
Thank you, Bhante. I'm very, very grateful for this course, and it reminded me of a very popular TV show, The Good Place. There was this character. They built this void, like a nirvana, for these people who passed away to go. So at the end, one character said he felt the air inside of me and outside of me are the same. I think I'm ready to go. So in this sutra, the Buddha said to his son, both the internal elements and the external elements are the same. And then he said, this is not mine, this is not myself. So I'm wondering, should we tell ourselves in the meditation the same the Buddha told his son?
Not yet. We're going to be coming to that in the later section.
Oh, thank you. So this meditation is going to tell us that we are the oneness. We're not ourselves. We are the oneness.
Not quite oneness, but just be patient till we come to that aspect of the practice. That is from 3:30 to 4:15.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much.
Okay. And I have to ask people to keep the questions simple and concise, because we have to move on to the next phase of the meditation. Okay, Deborah.
Yes, thank you, Bhante. When I'm observing the whole body breathing, it's quite illuminated, not a nimitta, just illuminated. But in walking, I had the same experience, so heavy that I wasn't sure where to put my focus. Do I keep my focus also on the breathing, or just be in the experience of the elements barely being able to walk from the heaviness?
When you're doing the walking meditation, you're not focusing on the breathing.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and you just focus on observing the body. The previous sections were by way of the earth element.
Yes.
We'll have a little surprise with the next walking session.
Oh, that was already quite effective. Thank you, Bhante.
Okay. Okay, this will be the last question coming up. Noah?
I thank you, Bhante. My question is, the sensations are arising and passing away very quickly, and I'm wondering how to clearly perceive the element when they're moving. that fast, basically.
I think it's quite natural when you have good concentration for the sensations to be arising and passing away quickly. But so they're rising and passing away quickly, but still you could see that the sensation that is arising and passing away quickly is a sensation representing that element. So in the case of the earth element, will be sensations of solidity or hardness that are arising and passing away. In the case of the air element, it will be expansion and contraction. Well, it'll be in the expansion and contraction, you'll start to see a gross movement of expansion break up into little fragmentary movements of expansion. So what seems to be a continuous expansion is actually a continuum of successive, discrete instances of expansion. And so with contraction, similarly. And with the experience of the heat element, there'll be like the flashes of heat arising and passing very quickly. So that shouldn't be that shouldn't incapacitate your ability to discern the characteristic of the element. It's just that now you're seeing at a more subtler and more like microscopic level.
Thank you.
Okay, now we're going to move on. Maybe just to sort of prepare for the next session, we could do like 2 minutes or 1 minute, just stand, stretch, bend and stretch, then take the seat again. Okay, now, okay, we're ready to resume now. Okay, so now we're going to take the water element. And the water element is said to be the subtlest in terms of direct experience of the 4 elements. In fact, it's said in the commentaries that you can't directly experience the water element, but you have to only understand it conceptually. But in my own experience, I don't agree with that. I found that one can experience the water element. And now the water element, in terms of its experiential characteristic, well, in terms of, let's say, the gross characteristic is that of wetness or flowing. But in terms of meditative experience, the water element is said to have the property of cohesion, of binding the particles of matter, holding them together. So it might be that the water element in traditional Buddhist cosmology represents something like the electromagnetic bond between subatomic particles of matter, or maybe the force of attraction between particles of matter. And maybe the way the ancient Buddhist philosophers came to that conclusion maybe is based on the experience of when you're making roti or chapati, you know, the flatbread. You take dough, you take the flour and put it out on a board. And if you just have the particles of flour by themselves and you shake them, they just fly apart. But when you mix the particles of flour with water and knead the water into the particles, then the particles hold together to make the dough. Okay, so what we're going to be, there are two ways to go about examining through meditative experience the water element in the body. One is the subtler way, is to seek the characteristic of cohesion, to try to feel at a very subtle level in the body the binding force, the attractive force between the particles of matter in the body. So when we do the water element, if you can detect that, and it takes a lot of sensitivity and thorough attention to be able to pick it up, if you can do that, good. If you find that it's too difficult to do that, then what you could do is when we do the body scan is simply follow the scan along, reflecting conceptually that this body is made up of 75% water. I don't remember the exact percentage, but we'll just say 75%. So what we are passing through, though it seems to be solid and substantial, but at least 3/4 of it is water. Okay, now let us take the meditation's sitting position and settle in. Okay, first we establish present moment mindfulness in the body. So just settle in for a minute or so. Okay, now the discernment of the water element is built up as usual upon the foundation of discernment of the earth element. So for the first 10 minutes or so of this session, we're going to work on scanning the body by way of the earth element, then doing some sweeps through the body in terms of the earth element, and then holding the global perception of the body by way of the earth element. So you've already had guidance, and okay, maybe I will do the guided scan of the earth element. Okay, we can start at the top of the head. And you could feel the top of the skull. There's the sense of the hardness or solidity. And first run through the skull to get the sense of hardness, solidity. Coming down to the cheekbones, the teeth, the jawbone, then sweep through the head a few times, or scan the head a few times to see the solidity even in these soft, fleshy parts of the head. Take in the back of the skull, the back of the head as well. Come to the jawbone, the chin, then down the neck, doing it as a cross section, not just the front, but slicing right through the neck. And come to the shoulders, and now try to go down both arms simultaneously or quickly alternating from one to the other, from the shoulders down to the hands. And whatever you pick up, if you can't discern anything, don't worry. Just after a few seconds, move on. Okay, down to the hands and the fingers. Then we come back to the back to the neck. And we scan through the torso. First, the chest and upper back, cross section. Looking for hardness, solidity, substance. The earthiness of the body. And we come to the abdomen. And through the abdomen to the lower back, cross section. We come to the pelvic region, including the hips, then down in the front, the lower abdomen, down to the pubic region, looking for solidity, substance, earthiness. Then from the lower back or from the hips, we go through the buttocks, then we come to the legs. First we do the thighs. Try to do them left and right simultaneously or quickly alternating. The thighs down to and including the knees. Whatever manifests of earthiness, solidity, material substance, then the lower legs, from the knees down to the ankles, the feet and the toes. Okay, then we go up to the top of the head and we sweep through the body a few times quickly, maybe 3 or 4 times. Just about 1 minute for one sweep, but don't time it, just do it naturally. Then hold the global perception of the earth element of the body, the global experience, the total experience of the solidity or earthiness of the material body. Okay, now we're going to start investigating the water element through the property of cohesion, binding together, sticking together. We say maybe the electromagnetic bond between the particles of matter. So start at the top of the head and slowly scan down, seeing if you can feel some kind of cohesive force holding the particles of the body together. Just move slowly down the whole body, down through the head, looking for cohesion, binding, holding together. You could scan the head a few times since the head is especially sensitive. You could use the keywords like cohesion, binding, holding together. Okay, now we come to the neck. Again, go through the neck, looking for the cohesion of the minute material particles, maybe subatomic or atomic particles, making up the flesh of the neck. Looking for that very subtle cohesive force, that binding force. And now we go along the shoulders. As usual, whatever you could pick up. If you can't pick anything up, don't be worried. Just keep on going along with it till something becomes manifest. Okay, let's go down the arms now. The upper arms, we'll take them separately. Right arm, down to the elbow. Left arm, down to the elbow. Then right arm from the elbow down to the hand and the fingers, looking for the binding cohesion, the attractive force among the particles. Then the left arm from the elbow to the hand and fingers. Then come back up to the neck. And we scan down the chest. Again, in the cross-section manner, including the upper back. Seeking the cohesion, the binding force amongst the particles that constitute the earth element. Then we come to the abdomen and the middle section of the back. The cross-sectional manner. Then one comes to the lower part of the abdomen, down through the pubic region, seeking cohesion. And up to the pelvic region, the hips, and the buttocks. Cohesion. Then down the thighs, right thigh to the knee. Left thigh to the knee. Then the lower leg from the knee to the foot and the toes. First the right foot, the right leg. Look for cohesion, binding. holding together. And the left leg from the knee to the foot. Then we could go up to the top of the head and a few quick sweeps through the body in terms of the property of cohesion, the water element. Just sweep through with the thought, cohesion, cohesion, or binding together, binding together. Then go to the global or total feeling of the body and apply to that the perception of all the particles of the body binding together, holding together, cohering together through the function of the water element. And if you had difficulty picking up the perception of cohesion, instead you could apply to the global sense of the body the sense or the knowledge, this is 75% water. You could even sweep through the body a few times, conceiving it as being 75% water. Okay, I'd like you to do another scan of the body, a slow scan in terms of the property of cohesion or the idea of the body as mostly water element, and do this on your own. The slow scan from head to the feet, seeking out either the property of cohesion or binding, or the sense of the liquid, watery nature of most of the body. You do this for about 10 minutes, then I'll signal the end of the session. And when you finish the scan, then you can go to the global perception of the body, either by way of cohesion or by way of its liquid, fluid nature. Okay. You can relax now and end the session in the usual way. Okay, we're going to do a period of walking meditation now. And here the instructions will be a little different from the previous one. The water element is also said to have the property of flowing. And of course, we could see this in streams, rivers, and so on. So when we do the walking meditation, we're going to focus on the body as the water element in the act of flowing. Don't make a deliberate effort to flow as you walk, but just focus on the body as water element and walk, maybe giving special attention to the pushing of the foot forward. Don't give too much attention to the dropping of the foot or the contact of the foot with the ground, but instead put the emphasis on the pushing of the foot forward and consider the body as the water element in the act of flowing. Okay, so we will do this, let us say about, okay, we'll come back to our seats at 3:40. Testing 1, 2. It's okay. Okay, so now we come to the period in which we are going to join the internal and the external. So far, we've been doing the elements meditation on the 4 elements as they are experienced internally, that is within our own bodies. Now we are going to discern the, you say, the essential sameness, the uniformity, the essential, maybe non-distinctiveness, non-duality of the internal material element and the external material element. And to do this, we're going to base our practice on the Buddha's instructions to his son Rahula, except we won't be going through all of the individual constituents of the body, but instead we'll be taking the elements in terms of their, what we call their distinctive characteristics. Okay, so this will be partly, a heavily reflective meditation rather than a purely experiential one. So take your comfortable meditation seat. Okay, first establish mindfulness in the body. And then first we scan the body by way of the earth element. And here we don't have to do the very slow scan, but just a moderate scan, scan at a moderate speed, just to get perception of the earthiness of the physical body. So scan it at a moderate pace from the top of the head down to the soles of the feet. Then take the global or totalistic perception of the body in terms of the earth element, in terms of the property of solidity, material substance, earthiness. So this is the internal earth element, and its counterpart is the external earth element. That is all of the solid matter that pertains to the natural world. All of the material objects and processes, material phenomena, consisting of, I don't know, some 100+ material elements. And we reflect that the material constitution of this body is essentially identical with the material constitution of the external world. This body is composed largely of carbon, various minerals, iron, calcium, magnesium, zinc, potassium, sodium, phosphorus, and other minerals. The material objects of the external world also have the property of solidity, hardness, earthiness, substantiality, just like the earth element of our body. Every day, several times a day, we ingest food. Food is part of the external natural world, and it consists largely of the earth element, the various minerals transformed into vegetables, grains, fruits, beans, legumes. So we constantly ingest external earth element through our food, And then the undigested food, which is earth element, included as feces, that gets excreted and becomes external earth element. And in a more natural culture, a more nature-based culture, the feces might be collected and used as fertilizer, again becoming part of the natural cycle. And so internal earth element becomes external earth element, which nurtures the growth of our food, which is ingested and becomes internal earth element. And so we have internal earth element and external earth element, essentially identical in their property of being earth element, material substance, with the distinctive property of hardness or solidity. So reflect on that. And then when we see this as it actually is with proper wisdom, then we realize that this that we call the body is not mine, not what I am, not myself, but is just a compound of elements, including the earth element. So with this reflection, we can loosen the grip of I and mine regarding the material body. It's just in part earth element, contiguous with and essentially identical with the external earth element. So just turn this over in your mind for a minute or so. And then see the body as being not mine, not I, not myself. But just in part a configuration of the earth element. Okay, now we go to the water element, the liquid element, and we're going to scan the body not in terms of the property of cohesion, but rather in terms of the liquid nature of the body, the fluid constituents of the body. To just scan the body at a moderate pace, at a moderate pace, focusing on the body as liquid, liquid. "75% water." Even the organs that are counted as earth element, like the lungs, the heart, the liver, the intestines, are actually mostly water, mostly liquid. Okay, so that is the internal water element with its property of liquidity, liquidness, or fluidity, wetness. And we know the external water element as we can detect it most clearly in rivers and lakes and ponds and streams, in rainwater, in the water that comes out from our pipes and taps, the drinking and bathing and cooking. And so that external water element and the internal water element have essentially the same nature. Chemically, they both consist of two hydrogen atoms and one oxygen atom, H2O. So just reflect on this essential identity, contiguity of the external water element and the water element within our bodies. Then our bodies are in a constant process of exchange with the external water element. Every day we might drink so many cups of water, either plain water or tea, coffee, other beverages. So the external water comes into the body and is assimilated and becomes internal water element. And then internal water element is excreted into the external world through our sweat, through urination, and probably in other ways. And so when we see how the external water element is constantly passing into the body and becoming internal water element, and the internal water element is constantly passing out from the body into the external world, we can see that this body, via the water element, is not mine, not I, not myself, but just a configuration of matter partly constituted by the water element. Okay, reflect on that for a moment. Okay, now we come to the fire element. And so we can scan the body in terms of the intrinsic temperature or heat of the body. And we recognize that is the internal fire element or the internal heat element. Then there is the external heat element, which most fundamentally is the heat of the atmosphere of the earth, the heat of a particular geographical region where we are living right now, which of course is dependent on the heat of the sun. And we could see that the heat internal to the body and the heat of the external environment are both manifestations of the heat element, ultimately deriving from the fiery heat of the sun. And we can reflect on how the heat of the body that sustains life depends on the temperature of the external environment being within a certain range. If the external temperature rises persistently above a certain level, maybe something like 130 degrees Fahrenheit, then before long, without shade or air conditioning, the body will die. And if the temperature drops beneath a certain level, becoming freezing cold, and the body has insufficient clothes, or it's exposed for too long to the cold, again it will die. So we see there is a consistency between the external heat element and the internal heat element. And both are simply heat element or fire element. So contemplating it thus, we can realize that this body should not be grasped as I, mine, myself. So reflect on this for a minute or so. Not mine, not I, not myself, but just a material process sustained by heat, sustained by its own internal heat and by the congenial temperature of the external environment. Okay, now we come to the air element. And first, focus on your own body. Don't have to do a full scan, but it's just enough to attend to the expansion and contraction of the chest and the rise and fall of the abdomen as you're breathing in and out. And as you're breathing in and out, as you breathe in, you're taking the air from the external environment into the lungs, where the oxygen will be extracted and absorbed into the bloodstream. And the carbon dioxide from the body and other gases that are inessential to life will be exhaled and become part of the natural, of the external environment. And so external gases become internal, part of the internal constitution of the body, and the unwanted waste gases expelled by the cells get exhaled into the external world. And so the internal air element, the external air element are both essentially identical, in being air element. And if we should be cut off from air, from oxygen, even for a few minutes, then we will suffocate and die. And so the body is totally dependent on the air element. So reflecting in that way, we could see that this body cannot be taken as being truly mine, I, or myself. Okay, for the next 5 minutes, I want you to just reflect on these themes on your own. Repeatedly trying to see how the body, because of its material constitution, is not mine, not I, not myself. Okay, okay, you can relax now. And we will take a break until 4:40. So that will be 18-minute break. And then we'll come back for the final full session of this retreat on the body's final destination. Testing, 1, 2. Okay. Okay, so now we come to the final session in our retreat on contemplation of the body. And this will be based on the last section in the Satipatthana Sutta on contemplation of the body. And this is what is sometimes called the charnel ground contemplation. And first we will look at the text, and then I'll try to do we call this a modern adaptation of this contemplation. So let me share the screen. Okay, do you see the text now? Okay, some might find this a little bit gruesome if you're extremely, what is the word, high strung. You might not want to stay for this session, but I think it's useful to learn the lesson that's being imparted here. Because, I mean, this is part of the teaching of the Buddha as well. Okay, so let us read the text. In some parts I'll skip over. Okay, so here we take the case, and the sutta in Pali is translated as though he were. So that's the English translation. So the Pali word, sayatapi, which suggests that this is an exercise to be performed in the imagination, not something that you literally have to go to a charnel ground to see the corpse, but you can use your imagination to contemplate these stages of disintegration. So the first, suppose one were to see a corpse thrown aside in a charnel ground, 1, 2, or 3 days dead, bloated, livid, and oozing matter. One then compares the same body, that is one's own body, with it thus. This body too is of the same nature. It will be like that. It is not exempt from that fate. Okay, then you see each of these is considered in the original text a separate exercise. And so for that reason, they count these as 9 contemplations. But we could merge them together as successive stages in one contemplation. So the next stage, one sees the corpse, this a little quite gruesome, being devoured by crows, hawks, vultures, dogs, jackals, or various kinds of worms. You see, in ancient India, especially when they would execute criminals, they would just throw the body into the charnel ground, no proper burial rites. And that way the body would be exposed to all sorts of animals and other living beings that devour it. Okay, then moving on, we can suppose one were to see a corpse thrown aside in the charnel ground. Now it's reduced to a skeleton, still with some flesh and blood, held together by the sinews. Then one next sees the skeleton without flesh, but still it's smeared with blood, held together with sinews. Then one sees the skeleton without flesh and blood, but still it maintains its integrity, it's bound together by sinews. In the next stage, the sinews have eroded to have been destroyed by the elements, And so now what one sees are disconnected bones scattered in all directions. In one place, a hand bone, the next place, another place, a foot bone, a shin bone, a thigh bone, hip bone, backbone, rib bone, breastbone, arm bone, shoulder bone, neck bone, jaw bone, tooth, and there the skull. And then one compares one's own body with this, thus. This body is of the same nature. It will be like that. It is not exempt from that fate. And then in the next case, one sees the corpse thrown aside in the charnel ground where the bones have been bleached white, but they still are discernible as individual bones. Then somehow the bones get to be heaped up at more than a year old. Then the bones become rotten and crumbled to dust. And then one reflects, this body too is of the same nature. It will be like that. It is not exempt from that fate. So that is the text of the sutta. And let me try my modern adaptation of this. And you can do this while sitting in meditation with the eyes closed. And my words might be a little strong, but please brace yourself and have the courage to go through this exercise. And we're going to be taking the case of your own death, and we'll take the case of a cremation rather than a burial. And don't forget, the dead body is just a body. The mind stream of consciousness continues on. Okay, now you have just passed away. Let's suppose you're lying at home in your own bed. And now you've just passed away. You've been ill. Maybe one of your relatives who's looking after you comes into the room with a tray with your meal on it and sees that you are lying flat on the bed, not getting up to receive the meal. He's a little concerned, comes over, feels the pulse, no pulse. Gets a mirror to see if there's breathing, no breath. Informs the other relatives, they come in, and everybody is maybe crying and lamenting. Okay, but then they make the arrangements for the funeral. And now the body has been embalmed, dressed up nicely in its best clothes, lying in the open coffin. All the relatives and friends have gathered for the funeral service. Some are giving little talks about how much they appreciated you during your life, and so forth. Then the ceremony is finished. The coffin is closed, loaded on to the hearse. And driven along with a number of accompanying cars driven over to the crematorium. The coffin is taken out from the hearse, brought into the crematorium. Maybe there'll be some couple of little speeches, or maybe there'll be some monastics come to recite some blessings. And finally, the coffin is taken and brought in front of the oven. What is the technical name for that? Oh, we'll just call it the oven. The oven is opened. The coffin is pushed into the oven. The door is closed. The heat is turned up. And the body is within, could be 8 hours, 10 hours. It's reduced to the charred remains, the bones and other remains. Then all of the remains are taken out and they're put into a machine which grinds them down and reduces them to a kind of ash. And the ash is put into a casket. And that is the fate of the body, this body. So just turn those events over in your mind in silence, reflecting that is the nature of this body. My body, this body will be like that. It is not exempt from that fate. Okay, carry on like this on your own now for, let's say, 7 minutes. And you could use any other related reflections that you like, just to reinforce the sense of the impermanence, the transitory nature of the body, its ultimate destination to be reduced just to ashes and bones, bone fragments, or if it's buried, to gradually decompose. Okay, when you reflect on the transient nature of the body, it becomes a very powerful antidote to the grasping of the body as being mine, I, myself. Okay, you could take a more relaxed sitting position now, but we're not yet completely finished. Because now the actual conduct, the course of the retreat is finished, but we still want to end with some concluding activities. And what we want to do is first this is the practice of a mudita, of rejoicing in our own dedication to the practice in the course of this retreat. rejoicing in our own dedication and rejoicing in the deep dedicated effort of all the other practitioners who have joined this retreat. And so it's probably very rare in this world for the Buddha's practice of the contemplation of the body to be taught, and for people to devote 4 days to this intensive practice. So let us rejoice in our own sincere practice and in the sincere practice of all the other people who join this retreat. Let's do this for a few minutes. Then we should bring to mind all of the people who contributed to the implementation of this retreat, particularly, first of all, to Stephen Seward and Kaidi Xu, who have been the coordinators for the retreat. And in the background, as hosts and co-hosts, managing the technical side. I hope that I get everybody. Let me see if I could get the names. In California, there's Yvonne Tseng and Vaishali Gaidani. Here in the East Coast, we have Osmond Boyk, Siyu Koswata, Stephen Sass, and Jane Du. Did I get everybody? I hope so. And then here at Zhuangyan Monastery, the indispensable person for managing all the technical aspects. Jason, yeah, please, maybe you should flash in front of your camera. Come in front of the camera. And wherever. Not just the hand, no. Yeah, Jason always handles all of the aspects of the computer, the transmission, any kind of little technical problem. Jason is the one who fixes it. And then we have Pante Mangala has been here helping with the chanting, both in the morning and in the afternoon. And we have the support of the nuns of Zhuangyan Monastery, particularly the abbess, Venerable Hong Jan. And so let us rejoice in their contribution and merits. Jason is focusing, so that's Bhante Mangala. And then you could turn to Venerable Hong Jan is standing in the back. And then the other nuns are somewhat in the distance. Venerable Chishu, I think maybe she is absorbed in samadhi. And to show Fasha sitting on the bench. Okay, and then let us share these merits with thoughts of metta, spread the vast treasury of merits over the world, sharing the merits. First of all, we could share them with any of our departed relatives, particularly our parents, if they have passed away. Other departed relatives and friends. And then spread and then share the merits with the devas, the Dharma protecting deities who help to preserve the Dharma in the world. And share the merits with the Bhutas, the fear spirits that eliminate obstructions to the good Dharma. And share the merit with the yakshas and pretas and all other invisible beings. Okay, you go on generating metta, loving kindness, then I will recite the verses for the sharing of the merits. Akasata cha bhumata Devanaga mahidika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakantu sasanam akasata cha bhumata Devanaga mahidika punyantang anumoditva Chirang rakantu desanam akasata chabumata devanaga mahidika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakantu mang parang pavagupadaya vichi hetato Etantare satakayupapanna rupya rupicha sanya sanino dukkha pumuchantu pusantu nibuting dukkha patacha nidukkha baya patacha nibaya Soka patachani soka hantu sabepi panino. May those in suffering be free from suffering. May those in fear be free from fear. May those in sorrow be free from sorrow. May all living beings also be thus. And then you all say sadhu, 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 sadhu. Okay, with this, the retreat is finished. But I just want to remind you, please look at the website of the Buddhist Association of the United States to keep track of our regular recurring activities. These include on Wednesday evening, from 7 to 8 p.m., I lead the group meditation, usually on loving kindness meditation. On Saturday, starting next Saturday morning, we'll resume the Saturday morning meditation and sutta study. From 9:30 to 10:10, we have group meditation. Then from 10:10 to about 11:30, sutta study of the Anguttara Nikaya. Then on Sunday evenings, Venerable Mangala conducts the group meditation from 7 to 8 p.m. with a question and answer session from 8 to 8:30. And on Monday morning, he provides over YouTube reflections on Dhamma reflections based on verses of the Dhammapada. And for details, you can check our website. And next Sunday, that is April 4th, we have the special ceremony here at Wang Yen Monastery called the Qing Ming ceremony. It's the special ceremony in the Chinese Buddhist tradition for paying homage to departed, especially departed parents, but other departed relatives. And that will be presented live over the internet, I think over YouTube. Please check our website for the details of how you could follow that. It's a very beautiful ceremony, very beautiful and deeply moving. Okay, we will end with 3 bows to the Buddha. So let us all rise. First bow. Second bow. Third bow.
Thank you, dear Bandi.
Thank you, Bani.
Thank you,
Bani.
Sadhu, sadhu.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bante. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Bani.
Okay, thank you,
Thank you,
Patricia.
Bante.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bante. Thank you.
Thank you, dear everyone.
He's to wear his normal collar.
Thank you, thank you.
Okay, okay.
Thank you, dear Bante.
Nhớ等我半小时，我可以跟你一起。
Thank you, Bante.
Maybe 15 minutes.
Thank you, everyone.
Amita, Pidani here.
Thank you, dear Bante.
Hi, Amita.
Dear Bante. Thank you, dear Holy Second. Thank you, everyone. Love you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Amita.
Much gratitude to all.
Thank you, dear.
Be safe. May you all be safe.
And the antibiotic.
That was Amita, no? Amita.
Nanti Sandi akan balan.